The European Baseball Coaches Association presents the recorded sessions of the 19th EBCA Convention 2024 in Budapest, Hungary. This session's speaker is Brian Covell. With his experience with the U23 baseball team in Benin, his session is about teaching baseball in Africa.
Everyone can hear me okay, I hope? Good. Yeah. I'm probably sort of a medium range in terms of our presenters from last night. Darren, who's a vocal range, probably up here. Coach Weinstein probably here, so I might be in the middle. I can take it off and yell if I need to. I'm a minister, I'm used to haranguing people. So I've got that experience, and I can do that. I also want to make something of a disclaimer, because I know that you people come here expecting to have top-level expertise, and so far we've had that with the three presenters that we had last night, who were terrific. I'm not going to make any pretensions to say that I'm at their level, because I'm not. I'm a person who's loved baseball my entire life. I did coach it for a while at the college level, played at the college level, high school, and all the rest. But for the last 20-25 years or so, interspersed with doing some coaching, I've been doing something else. This experience that I'm about to tell you about in Benin in West Africa is about us trying to bring the sport a sense of recreation and hopefully joy in places where at times it can be a little bit difficult for kids to experience that. So you can refer to it as sports diplomacy if you feel so compelled. It just so happens I'm married to a diplomat, so I suppose since you like sports and you're married to a diplomat, you can put the two together, but it's not really, I don't understand it that way. I thought it was an opportunity to bring some learning, education, and some joy to a great group of kids. So let's get going. Here's our practice site on the grounds of the Don Bosco Technical School in the Zogbo neighborhood of Cotonou, Benin. If you think it looks a little bit rough in terms of playing, you should have seen it when we started. This series of pictures was taken, that particular picture was taken about midway through my coaching experience there. You can see we were able to craft a makeshift diamond with a backstop in a space that's used for calisthenics and for soccer. Soccer, like for most of you people, I think, being the dominant sport in your particular countries, it's very much the case in Benin. Here you see us. These pictures here are at also the Don Bosco site. There's a picture of me, of Coach Fernando, and a Salesian nun named Christina Vargas, who was able to broker her connections to the Salesian brothers to allow us to use the site. So without her, we wouldn't have been able to use the site. As you can see, they were able to line it for international friendly contest with a couple teams from Nigeria about 2 months ago. That's me again, also at the Don Bosco site. And you can read these quotes, but I thought it was instructive to put these up there. How many of you remember hearing the name Darrell Royal? Does that name mean anything to you, other than football fans in the U.S.? Darrell Royal, University of Texas football coach. Luck is a residue with preparation meaning opportunity. And I think that's very much the case in coaching, whether you're ready for it or not, which means you can bring your experience, otherwise you're going to be able to learn on the fly. Starting where you are can actually really be a gift, I think. If you don't happen to know a huge amount about the game, you're working with the individuals who help you be learners and help you become better coaches, these guys right here. And I refer to them as my mentors. I thought I knew a lot about how to impart information to kids, but I had obviously the difficulty of two language barriers, French and the local dialect phone. I had to learn phrases in that really, really fast to be able to communicate to them really, directly. But they helped me do it. They helped me become functional and literate in phrases and expressions in ways that I scarcely could have conceived when I started working there in early 2021. And there's a note about joint frustration being built into the role as coaches. I'm sure you know that as well as I do. A little bit some information about Benin with our national flag there. The population, you can read it. There's this point right down here at the bottom about poverty rate. Anyone know what HDI stands for? HDI, the acronym HDI? Any idea? Human Development Index. So the United Nations, any one of its agencies dealing with health and human services, come up together with that and working with the World Bank, establish an HDI rank for all of the countries. And as you can see, we were fairly low, 163 out of 189. So that's educational attainment, access to education, access to employment, access to potable water and food. All those three factors measured in. And see the information about the population and how it's a young, like much of West Africa, it's a young region. There I am at Ganvier, which was a settlement founded in the late 1800s, late 1700s, by members of tribal communities in the area close to where Cotonou is right now, because they were escaping slave traders from Western Europe. So they built homes on stilts in the middle of Benin's second largest lake to create something of a moat factor for them. And the successors of those original families live in that community now. They refer to it as the Venice of West Africa, because you have to use boats to be able to get to different, if you want to visit people or go to school or go to a doctor or the post office, that's how you do it, that's how you get there. And that's a little bit about me. Here's my main man, Fernando Atanon, the president of the Benin Baseball Softball Federation. And he started, as I said, as I noted up there on the board, being a translator for the individuals I'm going to show you on the next slide on a medical mission trip in 2010. He works now as the athletic director and physical education director at the Quality School International of Benin, which is the second largest international school in Cotonou. And it's where most of the American and non-French speaking expat families attend school. All right, and so part of Coach is going to click on these pictures here in a second. In fact, and I'll give you a little background. There you go. That I'll get back to that frame. Yeah, this is the site that we're working on now to build a baseball-specific facility on the grounds of a public school in Cotonou. It's CEG Nokue. That space, and that's why we had this panorama shot up here, shows you it's basically 2 football fields, 2 European soccer fields, plus another 25 yards on either side of that. So it's a huge expanse, huge space. The workers, plus including some of the guys on the baseball team, spent weeks this past summer clearing out all the brush and removing the existing level of soil, the substrate on there, so that we could strip it all the way down to more of the sandy base. Then we brought in several hundred truckloads of clay, and you saw the compression factor. They were using that Soviet-era roller to sort of press it all down there. We're about 75% of the process done with it now. It'll be done in January, putting some more soil on top of it. And we'll have 2 diamonds built with backstops in there.
Brian,
Yeah.
can you use grass? Can you grow grass on that, or will they leave it dirt?
Yeah, as you can see, there's grass on the side. The problem with that, it's an unforgiving climate. It's really hot and humid. There is a rainy season. The issue will be is that if it's, it's had kind of, well, two concerns. You tear it up, how do you replace it? I mean, now you have to get the sod, you get the turf to put it back on again. We just found overall, most of the soccer fields in the country use that. So it's a high grade clay and soil mix. There we go. Founding Fathers of BIB, here you go. Gary Tonsiger on the right, he's on your left. On the right is Wally Langfellow, sports journalist in the Twin Cities. And that shows you, it gives you the information, the background of how they started our nonprofit foundation in Minneapolis. So now they've been doing this since 2012. They've raised close to, I think now they've estimated $175,000 in the Twin Cities with these tournaments and just in donations to send equipment to West Africa, and also to get the boys to come to play in 2 of the tournaments they've had. They did in 2016, did in 2018. They were able to do that right before COVID. The plan is to have a bunch of the under 12 kids go next summer. And here's some of the action. 42 different teams in 7 different communities in the Twin Cities last year. The eventual Minnesota State champion in Little League was in the tournament last year, but the level of play is very good. Okay, one of our challenges, well, I think our biggest challenge when we started was, what do we do in terms of getting kids sort of like baseball focused? Do we emphasize team skills or individual skills? Do we have enough time based on the kids' schedule to sort of to do both or really focus on one? It took a lot of trial and error because we found for a lot of different reasons the kids had a hard time being able to come to practice consistently until we found ways to support them in doing so. For a lot of kids, getting to practice once a week was a real challenge. Public transportation, not really consistent. There is a system, but to doing so, like I was telling, I think someone here in the crowd last night, if you want to get your 13-year-old kid to practice, you're going to put him on the back of a motorcycle without a helmet, and he's going to be going across town in very dense traffic. A lot of parents are not necessarily crazy about that idea. So as I said, we had to figure out some workarounds to make that happen. So even when we were able to get the group together, we emphasized individual skills at first, eventually built in working on things, team concepts. Every time we practiced, whether it was an individual breakdown group, infielders, outfielders, pitchers, catchers, we worked on these skills, throwing, catching, fielding, and hitting at every practice. We also tried to work on flexibility and speed development, plyometrics and such. We're using these tools that I'm sure many of you have already seen. I was able to get some of these things shipped in from the US, but we worked on those things at every practice as well. As I said, midweek practices focused on positional work, pitcher, catcher, infield, outfielder. Typical duration about 90 minutes, and as you can see, we worked out on Saturday mornings 3 to 3.5 hours. Coach, can you hit that 5 point in the video? Okay. Here we go with our 5-point throwing drill. You'll see that I've established a 4-seam grip on the baseball as we've discussed before. See my thumb splits my fingers in half. Inside pad of the thumb rests on the seam of the baseball. Top 2 pads of the fingers on top of the seam in this fashion. Okay, and you'll see that my feet are slightly wider than shoulder width apart. And bend my knee, also being good athletic stance. Start with the ball and glove together, pressing the ball into right there, the point here between the index finger and the palm of the hand. This is position 1. Okay. Position 2, I turn my shoulder toward the target. Position 3, I elevate my back elbow, make sure that my wrist is pointed on the 45-degree angle to the back wall. Position 4, I step at the target. Turn my left foot in slightly. Point my glove at the target here, like this. 5. I release. And I stake up my back leg by making it out. Coach, you can stop that. Yeah. Okay. We worked on that 5-point throwing drill, which I'm sure some of you are thinking, well, that seems pretty basic. Majority of kids, with the exception of some of the kids on the U23s who had been to Minnesota before in 2016, 2018, didn't know anything about how to throw a baseball. They pick a ball and you can kind of imagine it with like sling it like this, or like would try to line up their fingers, in between, the laces. So we really felt it was important to establish a sound fundamental base every time that we worked out. And eventually, I would say probably about a year's time, I have a sense that our U12 All-Stars and the U23 team seemed like they were fluid enough to just to be able to throw without having to stop and think, do I have to put my foot here, do I have to put my arm back? So it took that sort of like amount of time, plus a lot of practice, I think, on their own. Okay, so individual skills practice outline. This is something that we did fairly early. This is actually a 2-page document. The hitting drill work. The hitting work is on the back. Is on page 2. We'll talk about that in a little bit. You can see right there. It's pretty self-explanatory. Our defensive skills. Was receiving, catching the ball, catching and throwing, and then working infield, outfield throwing basics. Offensive skills, back control basics with one hand, emphasizing proper grip, determining bat size, establishing proper swing plane, and then working on the two-handed swing and stance. This is a backstop, as you can see, portable unit, 17 feet wide, 10 feet tall. Have any of you guys seen one of these before, one of these rigs? They're worth the weight in gold to us, and I was able to get 2 grants from the State Department to buy them because it's a little bit pricey out of pocket to pay $699 for something like this and get it shipped over from the U.S. But we got one for the Little League and got one for the U12 team, and got some stake down bases as well. It's a grant program from the State Department that's for eligible family members like me who are working with overseas nonprofits. As I said, this allowed us to be able to do things we hadn't done before. Otherwise, we've been using like throw down bases that slide every time you push into them, right?
Do you know the name of the company Brian did that?
I think I think PowerNet does a version of this, right? And I'd have to look at the insert, but I don't know. I can't tell from the from that picture. But there are a couple different companies do a version of this, and the kids are great at it. I mean, it's just like it takes about 5 minutes to set them up and break them down. And as you can see, I think I had another picture. We used either sandbags or concrete blocks to pin it down. So otherwise, if it got really windy, it would blow away. Coach, can you hit that?
Sure.
One, 10.
That was taken at the fall baseball camp for 2023 from last year, when they had 110 kids involved from across the city playing at Don Bosco. And Fidel, our star pitcher, was teaching. He also plays shortstop. We're teaching our basic infield stance, fielding progression. Maybe you've seen this before about being in the stance position, having your glove foot extended like this in a gas pedal sort of position, receiving the ball, pressing your foot down, taking a shuffle step, and then receiving. That was basically one part of that progression that Fidel was working with. Here's pitching and catching, ISBO outline. I don't know if you can see it that clearly, but what I would do when I would send this outline out to the kids is try to put up some information about catching. There were various websites about the number of plays involving receiving only, how many plays involve blocks. Coach Weinstein, I don't know if you can see this and critique it and to ascertain as to whether or not this is complete BS or whether or not it's accurate. But kids love this sort of information because they love talking about baseball and finding out, what do the Rockies do to train their catchers? And I watched a clip of the Red Sox, or the Twins, and Vasquez, his throws aren't so good. We do, I think, with their drills, what happens with a lot of high school, college programs, in using smaller balls to teach catching and receiving, which I'll show, different stances. Right leg down, right leg up, kickstand, and all the rest of it. And using balls of heavy weight to teach about receiving position and framing. That Coach Vodenlick mentioned directionality and starting strong in the back hip for pitching. We try to put a competitive accuracy element in every throwing drill that we did. One progression that we would start with our pitchers, if they were helping the catcher's frame, they could be on two knees separated by 10 feet throwing to the pitchers, underhanded in a specific way. They would grade each other on the strikes that they would throw. Then they would back up to 20 feet and be on one knee, throw it like a dart like that. We'd evaluate the number of strikes they would throw. They'd back up to 30 feet. They'd be on two knees, doing the same thing, helping the catcher's frame. We'd evaluate them based on the number of strikes that they would throw. Then 40 feet, we would do the 5-point throwing. 50 feet, they'd throw from the stretch. 60 feet, 6 inches, throw from the windup. And we'd aggregate their scores at the end of that. Who is really focused on accuracy and hitting the catcher's glove on a consistent basis. So every time the pitchers would throw the catchers, we would evaluate their accuracy. We'd grade them on how often they were in the strike zone. Coach, can you hit this one key there? Coach Weinstein, we got that drill from Todd Coburn. Using a heavy bat while he was up on yoga blocks. So this is something that he figured out himself. I didn't tell him how to do this. When I left, I took my bat. He figured out how to do this. He used that green strap I'd given him, and he practiced. He does that every 3 days, right? Amongst other drills. Now these files here are compressed, so we can't really show you what it is. But in this one, it's catching. You know what the top of a Pringles can looks like? It's these small plastic discs. I don't think you can. Yeah. So we have. Yeah. I don't think you can. But in any case, what he's doing is trying to receive using his the pinching fingers, index finger, and thumb, receiving the discs. But working on his hand accuracy, keeping his glove, extended but slightly flexed, and moving the discs and catching and putting in the strike zone. I mean, that's something easy you can do with your catchers. Maybe some of you are doing it already now. He does it every day when he does his catching drills progression, every single day. The other one that was back there, let me see if I can go back. This one is for receiving with a softball. So he's in his stance, say here, like this. He's down on a knee, kick stand out, working on receiving and catching a ball while the softball's in his hand. Now, he's doing what I don't want him to do normally. I would tell him when we first started doing this drill, I want you to have a mask on every time, even if it's a restricted flight ball, because it can be kind of tough to do. I mean, this is a kid who he can palm a watermelon. He has huge hands. He can do it really easily. But this is a great, in my estimation, a great drill for concentration, about catching the ball here in this location where the index finger meets the palm, and it's a consistent challenge. And I would grade him every week. How many times, if I threw the ball to you 30 times, how many times did you catch it? 17, 18, 19, 20? Of course it would improve. Yeah, this is a ladder drill that he devised. I thought it was really cool. Unfortunately, it's a compressed file. It's hard to read. It's hard for us to show it. We've been working on it the last couple days here. It doesn't go through. But basically, it's like an agility ladder. He does a foot fire drill through it. And at the end of it, he goes from cone to cone, practices blocking balls. The last 2 times he comes and receives and throws. This is Fidel here using towel drill from the stretch and from the wind-up. Again, compressed files. It's hard for us to show you. Here you think Okay, hitting skills. What are we doing for time?
We got plenty of time, don't worry. I'll let you know.
Okay, good. I'll show just a little bit of this. As you can imagine, you're teaching kids hitting skills. They don't have a lot of experience. It's sort of like, get up and swing. The bat swings them. Use a bat that's too large. Generally speaking, we've got enough, at this stage of the game, we have enough equipment, even for the little leaguers, that we give an appropriate size bat to swing. But you can see it, they'll step in the bucket, or they'll step and swing at the same time. Hands go here, the head goes here. So we really tried to develop, a system partly based on my own, experience in coaching, kids that age and a little bit higher level, about trying to simplify the swing and to try to make it as efficient and contact focused as possible. Actually, I was listening to Darren, last night. I was expecting that maybe my sort of orientation and approach, and his approach, because he's working with guys who are at the top of the food chain, and obviously significantly more developed than the guys that I coach, that there would be a huge variation in difference. Maybe there is in terminology, maybe there is in terms of some of the drills, but otherwise, I think there's a lot in common. I sent my YouTube channel on hitting instruction.
Now the same drill done to the top hand.
Okay, well, let's listen.
Notice that my grip is the same. Handle with the grip of the bat, pushing to the fingers, knocking knuckles, lined up. Taking out the same drill done with the top hand.
Well, it'll probably take too long. We can go.
Now we're going to incorporate the lower half with this component of the swing. Again, we're working to fight against that drag of the barrel, making sure our half of the swing is directly to the baseball. Again, we always start with the bottom hand. Inside corner of the plate, turn the toes by weight shifting back and forth. That's in the proper position on the back shoulder. Forward turn, stride, swing, down, hitting the top half of the baseball. But again, weight of the top hand. Proper position with the bat, the stock of the bat on the point of the back shoulder. Forward turn, stride, swing. Make contact, driving the ball down.
Okay, here's the third part. We're adding the lower body components, separating the stride and the weight shift. I'm showing this off-speed hitting drill. The focus of moving from a rigid back side to a rigid front side, whether you're hitting directly over your leg or against it, against the leg like this, meaning that way with the swing plane being perhaps slightly up. We give kids some leeway to be able to decide as to what works for them, over or against. And we really figured that the weight shift and swing angle is determined by the path of the front arm. My elbow goes up like this when we're swinging.
Okay, in this variation of the drill,
Oops, let's go back. Can you hit that so we can...
okay, in this variation of the drill, it's going to be slightly different because I'm going to be throwing the ball basically at a zero angle. That's where he's located, okay? So I'm moving from here on the side, throwing off-speed pitches. Okay, we're using wiffle balls for this because angle is a little bit more difficult for the hitter to adjust to, okay? When I make my toss, I'm going to be shooting for two places. Either for the hitter's front shoulder, left shoulder, or for the center of his body. Okay? He's going to make contact, okay, with his arms extended. Okay? Wind up. Stride. Keeps his weight back. Good. Wind up. Stride. Excellent. Keeps his weight back and throws his hands to the ball. One more time. Wind up. Stride. Very good.
Those pictures you saw there, that's not Benin. That's Dubai, where I live now. It was filmed on the grounds, actually a baseball field at the American School of Dubai, where my daughter goes to school. And that's, the kid who was swinging the bat was Kai Chapleski. He is now a second baseman at Sierra College in California. A long time, participated in Dubai Little League programs. I put the slide up there. I'm going to go back a little bit. I created that whole YouTube channel, about 10 minutes, yeah, good. I created that whole YouTube channel, in effect, so the kids could refer on their phones or on their computers to the lessons that we taught them while I was there in Benin. So I'm not there now, obviously, and it's probably going to be a while before I'm able to go back, frankly, for security reasons, so I can speak to them and teach them directly, right? And so I want them to have, a cue so they can refer back to the teaching that we had started and worked with, for 2 years. But as I said, I talked history and baseball history and important figures with the guys. And Pete Rose was a figure that caught the imagination of some of our older guys. Like, how come he's not in the Hall of Fame? What's going on with all of that? And I told him, I said, in terms of hitting style and approach, I really admired him. And I heard him on the MLB Network one time a couple years ago talking about his sort of paradigm for 3 types of hitting. And perhaps some of you guys have heard this too. He comes up with these situations. Runner on second, less than 2 outs. How do you advance the runner to third base? Runner on third, also less than 2 outs. How best to drive in the run without bunting? I put this in liner for my 3-4 hitters so that they can go ahead and give them my big bangers a shot so they can hit a fly ball for a sacrifice fly or to hit home run. Otherwise, Rose said, you're just trying to hit the ball hard somewhere. This kind of paradigm seemed like it really worked for them. In our baseball Benin hitting truths, you can see the notes on the side here. The principles apply to each and every player, with a few key exceptions. Most hitting situations are the same or similar. Every hitter is physically and emotionally unique. Everyone's get same. Just get different set of problems when they approach the plate. I'm sure you've seen this when you're coaching your guys. The focus of the techniques and mechanics are is to facilitate bat-to-ball contact in all areas of the hitter's individual strike zone, particularly with two-strike at-bats. We want the hitter to maintain bodily center of gravity balance throughout all parts of the swing. We want to control the bat through each part of the swing process. Productive bat-to-ball contact, the focus of each swing, of each at-bat. And I think, to me, this is the critical aspect of this, is to have the hitter see each and every pitch as intended for contact unless the pitch is really outside, demonstrably outside the strike zone. You want the kids saying, if the ball's released, I'm going to hit this thing, I'm going to hit this thing, yes, 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 oh, it's outside, no, I can stop. And to have the technique and the ability to stop themselves if they can tell it's a ball. But my understanding is, I'm going up here, we're here to make contact. Here's some of the examples of the plyometrics, but I put this in here because Fidel came up with this strength plyometric exercise on his own. Right, he's doing a high stepping striding drill here in karaoke there.
That one doesn't work, right?
Yeah, it doesn't work. Yeah, right. Okay. Team practices for the U23s. We'd meet on Saturday morning with the older kids, younger kids in the afternoon. You see the note about field preparation. You didn't work on the field, you didn't play. And here's the basic outline for our team practices. We talked about the 5-point throwing, how we would do this every time. We also worked on the various flips, that catchers, pitchers, middle infielders need to throw, underhand, sidearm, and the like. We were serious. Get to practice early because we have to work on the field. We didn't have cocoa mats, we didn't have steel mats, we didn't have tractors. It was lawn rakes and garden rakes to get the field ready, right? And we would rake the entire surface. We needed all of it if we were going to play. I don't think you can play this, but this is me. Oh yeah, I can. Okay. You can figure out what this is.
You got to get into that.
Yep. Sign's still on. Here we go. Heads up. Come in. Here we go. Come on, Owen. Great kid, super smart. He was constantly dumbfounded on the bases. He would take the sign the proper way, stand on the base, acknowledge it, then he'd get off. I'd make the move to home plate, he'd cross over and go back to first. We have some French speakers here. Can you guys read this? This is, we've written up a bunch of at-home study guides for the kids so they could have a chance to study these concepts. Basically, it's 1 or 2 page, sort of sheets of paper with bullet points on them to talk about, basic concepts, backing up bases, hitting the cutoff man, being the key thing. That was a concept that the kids really, really struggled with for a long time. We had to do a number of things to help work on that. Yeah, and you can see it right here. The infield fungo drill was really critical. For them, we did this, I would figure, probably 75% of the practices we had, the idea of receiving the ball, throwing it to home plate, and then collapsing to the middle of the infield. So you can sort of get the experience of taking a throw from a catcher like in a first and third drill. Obviously, they hadn't had a lot of experience doing that. The hitting game, as you can see what the focus was there. Maybe some of you guys had seen this article. This is from last fall, September, October issue of the EBCA magazine.
Inside pitch.
Yeah, inside pitch, right? And it talks about what our two-strike hitting skills, what our focus was on that. Basically what we do is just to play a game inside a batting practice, and we would start to hit ourselves with either disadvantageous or advantageous accounts. Disadvantageous meaning, say, like a 1-2 or an 0-2 account, and to make them to try to put the ball in play. If they struck out swinging, fine. If they struck out looking, the pitch was in the middle of the strike zone, the next time up, they would bunt. And they would bunt every subsequent time they would hit until they were able to get a bunt down. If it happened they were an advantageous count, say 3-1, 2-1, and they were able to coax a walk, we didn't let them leave without swinging the bat. We'd stop the game, put the bat on the tee, force them to hit the ball, keep it in play. We took attendance. We thought that there were kids who perhaps we thought that they weren't progressing as much as they would like, but have a tendency to either take a couple of weeks off. Either I or coach would get in contact with them as best we could and to say, well, look, if you want to be able to play after COVID is over, when we're playing our international contest, you need to be here. You need to get better. You can see that some guys kind of struggled with the concept. By the time I left, it seemed like we had usually between 95 and 100%, attendance. Baseball Olympics. And I'll describe it a little bit with the next couple slides that are up there. But they guys loved this stuff. They absolutely adored playing these games. It was essentially they were like a relay throws, or competing against their other teammates, in events that were by time. Here we go. Basic relay throwing drill, starting with a guy off to the side, the catcher, going all the way to the center field, to right field. Guys would have to do an underhand flip, a sidearm toss, and the ball would go all the way back. Oops. Here's an example of an infield, outfield fielding drill that involves an obstacle course and throwing, which they also loved. This was our last inter-squad game before I left the country, and it happened up at a brand new soccer facility in Tofo. That's about an hour and a half, or almost 2 hours north of Copenhagen. See the guys playing on the turf. Big success story. This kid here catching was able to qualify for a student visa and is going to Belize National, who's playing on the baseball team at Century College. It's in National Junior College Athletic Association Division III school, just outside the Twin Cities. He's playing at CHS Field there in St. Paul. So he's playing, it's a summer ball program. Great kid. Hopefully he'll be starting for them this spring, but he's looking for a place to play next fall, and for the spring following at a 4-year school. Coach, can you hit that?
I'm not there anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, it's time.
It's time. Okay. Yeah, this shows you Fidel pitching in the Nigeria friendly game that we had this past fall. It was a legit strike, wasn't it? Yeah. Yeah. Now, last they had another clip there. that showed the national television station had done a 2-minute piece on the fall 24 baseball camp with 120 kids under the age of 12. So Covell Little League is taking off. We'll have 6 teams with 15 kids this spring. So I had my address and I'll have our information up here, but it seems like we're running out of time.
We'll have time, we'll have more time for questions.
Okay. All right.
Hey, great job.
Okay, thanks a lot, guys. I really appreciate it.
This video is for EBCA Premium members only. If you're not a premium member yet, please consider joining. Or feel free to make a donation through our website. This video is copyrighted and may only be reproduced with the explicit written consent of the EBCA and the featured speaker.